Hey friends, welcome to the KidsMin Collective podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Ralston, and today's episode is called Easy Wins, High Impact KidsMin Events Without the Stress. Now, we know that kids ministry can be stressful, right? So how do we create some impactful events without the stress? Sounds like a dream. So this episode, we're going to offer a treasure trove of simple and low prep event ideas that are going to be easy to plan, budget friendly, and still meaningful for families and community outreach. So what sounds better than low prep, high impact events that aren't going to burn you out or your team, and you can do on a small budget? Honestly, that sounds pretty great. So I wanted to share some ideas and some options with you. First, I want to encourage you with this idea and this premise that not every event needs to have months of planning to be meaningful. There are lots of things you can do that don't require a ton of prep. And so just remember that as you're considering what things you want to put into your potential rotation of events and things that are helpful and impactful. So sometimes the easiest and the simplest events are the things that families remember the most. To be honest, from my childhood, I don't remember a ton of events that I did. I mean, I grew up in church, I was there a lot, but one of the things that I remember that was super impactful is our church played The Passion of the Christ. And first of all, my parents let me go, which I was young to watch that movie, but no judgment there, mom and dad. I'm just thinking, oh gosh, I was quite young for that. But our church put that on. And so I remember my peers were sitting there watching this with me. I remember other families from church were there. My parents were there. So it was just a very interesting dynamic to say, all these people are gathering together to watch this movie, and the pastor got up and said a little thing at the end, and that was highly impactful to me. Like, I still can picture it, and I remember what it was like to be sitting there in the worship center. And so that was simple, right? They had somebody get on in the back and do the tech, and they played the movie, and they invited people to show up. And there's not a lot of prep to that, but that was a highly impactful moment and event to me. So just remember that sometimes those are the most impactful things, and families remember them. So how do we identify this idea that low prep doesn't always mean low value? How do we kind of get past that idea? When we have low prep events, this is going to help you keep ministry sustainable, not only for you, but for leaders, volunteers, and families, right? If you have sustainable events and rotations and cycles of how things are playing out, you are going to help people stay healthier in their ability to serve and your ability to execute these events. So keeping ministry sustainable for leaders is a high value, right? It is also easier for guests. So if you're inviting families to these events, it's easier for them to show up casually if you are not, it's not a huge ordeal and something is, they feel this obligation to be there or to not be there. So keep that in mind. And it also makes space for connection more than for programming. So there's a lot of events that you are going to want to be relational, where you are able to connect, build relationships, have discipleship conversations, maybe in spaces that you wouldn't be able to do that. For example, how do you create an event that allows you as a KidsMin director or leader to directly have conversations that are discipleship conversations with parents that you might not otherwise get to have? How do you create a space for that? How do you create an event that allows those opportunities, or for other parents to have discipleship conversation with other parents? So considering those things, it does not always mean just because it's low prep that it's low value. You can actually create very high value events or programming with low prep and low cost. So What are some go-to low prep event ideas that might be beneficial for you? I'm pretty sure I've talked about this. It either comes up in an email sometime or I've talked about it on the podcast. But one of the events that I think was super, super beneficial that I did when I was on staff, this was not only my idea, our team somehow dreamed this up. And honestly, probably wasn't my idea to start with, but we dreamed up this event called Donuts and Play. The premise of this event is we buy donuts and kids come play and parents connect. That was it. That was the extent of what we did. So planning that went into that. The first time we did it, we had to obviously collect toys and or purchase some things that we could use. But we got very basic things, sidewalk chalk. I think we got bubbles and a couple of our bubble machines from a classroom. And we got some toys that kids could play with in the water. We filled up a couple of those like super cheap Walmart plastic pools with water, and we put some like little splash balls in there and little fishes and things like that. And we hooked up a hose and we turned on a sprinkler in our playground and we just played. Oh, and we bought donuts and we made coffee. Very low impact. So we made a list the first year. What are the things that we want to take to Donuts and Play? Where do we find those in our building, in our storage, and or what are the shopping things? Like you're probably going to need to buy new chalk, right? So, and new bubbles. So we would buy the things we would need to buy each year, and then we would pull the things out of the closet, reuse things we already had, go pick up donuts and make a pot of coffee. And that was it. We showed up at the playground at church. We invited all our families. We sent out a couple postcards with on Sunday mornings to just say, hey, don't forget, we're going to have this event. Come by. And some of my most meaningful conversations that I ever had with parents came directly from that event. So it was very low prep for us, very easy to execute, very inexpensive because once we basically you just had very few things, right? Chalk and bubbles that would go bad or you'd use up, donuts, and then we use coffee from the church. So very inexpensive, very easy to host and facilitate, and just really fun. And so we did that several years in a row. That was just parents would show up and they really enjoyed that. They really appreciated that. So another option, and this will be dependent on where you live, it will be dependent on if you have the ability to do this, but a bonfire night. Our church, my husband and I started attending about a year and a half ago, and last fall, first fall we'd been at the church, they said, hey, we're having a bonfire. And we said, great. And so they actually had several bonfire pits that they had. There's like a kind of a field next to our church. And so they had several bonfire pits and they encouraged people to just go sit down at each of those pits and get to know people that they didn't know very well. And we ended up connecting with, I met people that I had never met before. I had conversations with people I didn't know. They provided s'mores, and then we did a chili cook-off. So, it allowed people to be invested in that. We signed up to bring chili if you wanted to do that. We voted. There was a whole group that was voting on who had the best chili. And that was a big feat because there was literally like probably 35 containers of chili. It was a lot of chili. So, make that as, you don't have to make it as complicated as having a chili cook-off, but make a potluck, just provide s'mores and say there's no dinner. Like those are easy things you can do. And you can find somebody at the church who has firewood or who would donate for that event. So just think through that. Obviously, there's a safety aspect of a bonfire night, but that was a great way to just build and foster community. And so maybe you do that for your elementary families. Maybe that's hey, we kicked off fall and we're at fall break. We want to do a bonfire night and invite all of the elementary families to get to know each other, give them some way to connect with each other. Another thing you can do specific to kids ministry is to do a family picnic. So bring your own lunch or your own dinner or we'll provide popsicles or ice cream or something, and we show up to a park at all the same time and we do that together, provide some lawn games or, have people bring lawn games and just connect. And so that's super easy. Having them bring some of their own stuff offsets the cost of you having to provide. It also gives you the ability to, if you want to do something like we'll cook hot dogs or hamburgers and you just show up, like you bring your own drinks or whatever, there's options for that, right? It provides a space for you to invite your families to come together, to connect, to get to know each other in a different way. Another thing you could do is, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, is a movie night. Is there a specific movie that probably I would caution you with this? Don't just do a movie night. I think I would probably try to do a movie that has a theme or something that you're wanting to communicate to families or to children, or you just promote it as, hey, we're just doing a fun movie night in the park, right? Or movie night at the church. You could do this in the winter and do it in the worship center and clear out chairs and have people bring their pillow and their blanket and lay on the floor to watch the movie. If you want to do it during winter months, you could do it outside if you can find an inflatable screen or put up a sheet and tie it up somehow so that you're able, or project it onto the side of a building. There's lots of options for that. So provide them popcorn. Everybody brings their own snacks. Pretty easy, pretty low maintenance. Do make sure that you preview the movie first. If you haven't seen it, make sure you've done that. Board game nights, same thing. Families can bring their favorites. Church can provide the snacks. Show up, you play games. You could have one game at every table. Families could rotate. Like there isn't a lot of hosting that has to happen to that, but it creates a space where families are invited to come together with other families to connect, to have fun, to maybe meet people that they don't know, right? We do these types of things for adults. Like think about women's ministry. I played bunco at the church a couple of weeks ago. I literally knew like 4 people before I started playing bunco, and then I met all of these people. And so why do we think we can only do those things for adults and not just do those for families and children as well? You could do something that's just a chalk and bubble day. We bring chalk and bubbles and we're going to go to a park and we're going to meet there and we're going to play with chalk and bubbles. You're going to meet families at the park who aren't part of the church. You can have people invite their friends to that. Lots of things. So it can be, like I said, very low key. If you're wanting something to do specifically for your volunteer leaders, maybe you do some kind of like a pancake bar or a waffle bar before service. So, you pre-make waffles and toppings and bring toppings, and then you can serve them that way. It allows them to gather before church service and just have a little bit of mingling time. So those are just some options that you can use. I was gearing this a lot more towards high impact events for your families more so than leaders. But if you do want to talk about some leader options for events, we can definitely brainstorm that. So determine, just as you're planning, a few tips that will be helpful for you is start by determining your goal. Are you trying to reach families? Is that what you're trying to do? Are you trying to do outreach, meaning I'm inviting a bunch of people from the neighborhood because I want them to come get a taste of church? Are you just wanting to gather families so families build relationships with each other? Are you wanting to serve and or love on your volunteer leaders? The goal of what you're trying to accomplish is going to change the type of event. So just consider that as the first thing. Determine what your goal is. What are you trying to do with this event? And then I would say choose one, depending on your capacity, your ability, your availability, your team. What does that look like? Choose one event per quarter or one event per semester and just keep a consistent rhythm. So mark your calendar and you say every 6 months we're going to do an event, or every 4 months we're going to do an event, or 3 months, whatever a quarter is. Every quarter or every semester we're going to do an event so that you know when that's coming up. So if you want to do, a bonfire in the fall, that's coming in the fall. And then you can rotate locations. It doesn't always have to be in your ministry space. It doesn't always have to be on campus at the church. You can do things at a local park. You can do that in homes. If there's somebody at the church who has, maybe you want to do an Easter egg hunt and you don't want to do it at a park and you have a small church. Maybe you go to somebody's land and they have a huge yard and they are willing to host an Easter egg hunt. Like those are options you can use. So use the resources you have available. Feel free to rotate locations, and then promote the relational goals of that over just promote that that's to build relationships, right? Like if that's the goal of the event, you're going to want to figure out ways to promote the relational piece of that within the event. So remember that the relationship side of things is what matters over executing an event perfectly. Speaking to the choir here because that's me. I want a perfect event that, looks just like I saw online and happens perfectly with no glitches. And that's not really what it's about. The heart behind it is truly that relational aspect, discipleship aspect. How do we help others connect with others? And so, reminding you that a small event or a low prep event or a low budget event does not mean that it is insignificant. It is just an intentional event. It has an intentional goal, and there's a reason why you're doing this and why you are stepping into facilitating this event in a way that provides you with a space to gather people together and to love people well and to provide space for discipleship. So small doesn't mean insignificant. It's just intentional. So if you would like to brainstorm some possible event options that would work for you, if you want to debrief an event that you've done, if you want to talk about how to do something specific with an event you have coming up, let me know. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to be your advocate, your support, to walk alongside you as you're doing kids ministry. So let's hop on a call. You can find the link to my calendar to book a call on my homepage of my website, ozarkministryconsulting.com. And you can also find it in the description of this podcast. So I look forward to connecting with you. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you have a great week. Thanks for joining me today on the KidsMin Collective podcast, where we're all about nurturing leaders and impacting generations. Before you go, I want to invite you to take the next step in growing your ministry with confidence. I've created a free KidsMin Leader Assessment designed just for leaders like you. It walks you through the 5 key areas: purpose, people, programming, physical space, and procedures, helping you celebrate what's going well and uncover where there's room to grow. Whether you're a brand new leader or you've been leading for years, this tool will give you a clear picture of where your ministry stands and where it could go with a little strategy and support. Head over to ozarkministryconsulting.com to get started. You'll find the assessment right on the homepage, quick, simple, and packed with insight. And if this episode encouraged you, share it with a fellow leader or leave a review. We're better when we grow together. Until next time, keep leading well, keep loving big, and remember, your ministry matters.